I do believe that is exactly what is in the cards. These countries have been using our suppression, our naked shorting, which, we're going to talk about in a moment, which is as dumb as a mud wall against us and standing for delivery and repatriating the metal. And this is something that I don't think will change. I think they'll continue to do it. And the reason they didn't yank it all is that they want to continue to play the game. And that game, in my mind, is continuing to allow the West to be stupid enough to suppress the price of gold and silver. They will stand for delivery. This is an option that never happened before. And as I've said on your show a million times, the countries that have done this were never coordinated, motivated, or sophisticated enough to do it, or wealthy enough. Now they are on every level. And it ultimately will bleed the system dry.
Gold prices have climbed above $2,720 an ounce, closing in on record highs set just weeks ago, as economic conditions fuel unprecedented demand for the precious metal. Central banks in countries like China, India, and Saudi Arabia are at the forefront of this surge, with monthly gold purchases doubling the 12-month average. Analysts from leading Wall Street institutions speculate that China may boost its gold reserves by as much as 15% to 20% by 2028. The People's Bank of China, PBOC, reinforcing its position as 2023's top gold buyer, recently added 5 tons to its reserves in November, its first purchase since April. This steady accumulation has driven gold to hit all-time highs 39 times this year, solidifying its role as a cornerstone of global financial security. Andy Schectman, president and CEO of Miles Franklin, highlights the growing distrust of Western financial systems, which has led to a sharp decline in the amount of central bank gold stored in the US or UK, now at a 60-year low. This shift directly responds to incidents like Venezuela and Afghanistan being denied access to their reserves. China's swift repatriation of gold from the LBMA reflects this distrust, while the Shanghai Metals Exchange has overtaken COMEX in trading volume. Speculation about a BRICS-led metals exchange further underscores the changing dynamics as emerging economies prioritize control over their resources and reduce reliance on Western systems. The relentless demand for gold hasn't gone unnoticed by bullion banks, which Andy notes are now covering short positions to adapt to the sustained demand. Earlier efforts at price suppression, including a $200 drop post-election, provided central banks with opportunities to buy heavily, further tightening supply. Countries like Turkey, Kazakhstan, and Poland have joined this buying spree, collectively driving a surge in global purchases. With these forces converging, gold is poised to break new records, solidifying its role as a critical asset in a rapidly evolving financial landscape. As we bring you clips from the discussion, please take a little time to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications for more videos like this.
October tally of gold purchases by the central banks doubled that of the 12-month average over the last year. And the central banks are buying hand over fist again. China is doubling down their purchases. They never stopped. And that was evidenced by the import-export numbers out of Switzerland and the United Kingdom. They were buying stuff, as we've talked about, through the People's Liberation Army, which is not reported to the IMF as it would be if it was done by the PBOC. They're buying through proxy banks, commercial banks in China that are not directly reporting that to the IMF as they work on behalf, behind the scenes of the PBOC. We've talked a lot about how they have been buying doré and concentrate from South America, Latin America. And there was just a report that came out that said 78% right now, 78% of their raw silver is coming from South America at the current time in the form of concentrate. The amount of purchasing that we are seeing, it's probably why we've seen the bullion banks start to cover. I think they realize that the purchasing is not ending. When we saw Trump win the election, there was a euphoria, and rightfully so, as we've talked about, for many reasons. This gave the bullion banks the ability to push the ball down the hill to get it rolling, and the managed money, who was sitting on a lot of profits, capitalized by cashing out, which allowed the bullion banks to push the price further. It kept falling and falling and falling. Gold fell by $200, and a lot of those short contracts were covered. But this was an opportune moment, really, for the central banks who have been buying it hand over fist, and it hasn't stopped. And really, the big buyers are the People's Bank of China, the Saudi central bank, along with Turkey, along with Kazakhstan, along with India. These countries and Poland are buying hand over fist to the point where we now have, it's up manyfold from what it is on a moving average. And you mentioned something that we've talked about a lot as well, and that is the repatriation of gold. We've talked about that for a long time, how the West has, I think, it lost its. You could say its trust. You could say it's the West's decline in financial dominance. It's the fact that these countries don't want to keep their gold or silver any longer at the Bank of England or at the New York Fed. And as we've said a lot, the Bank of England gives direct access with safety, supposedly, to the London Metals Exchange, or the LBMA, and the Bank of Federal Reserve Bank in New York to the COMEX. We are now seeing up to 78% of all of the world's gold that, or at least the central bank held, is now in the countries that possess it. So in other words, another way of saying that is that 22%, that's it, 22% of central bank gold is held in these locations to give direct access to the COMEX and the LBMA. So, 1 out of every 4 ounces, the rest has been repatriated. This is a big deal. Mm-hmm. Maybe 1 out of 5 ounces, actually. It's a very big deal. In 1972, it was half of the gold. 50% of it was held at the Bank of England and the New York Fed. It's now down to 22%. It's a big deal. And it really, I think, goes to show that these countries are no longer trusting that we will even repatriate or return their gold, rather, just like what happened to Venezuela. It's a big deal, and I think it will continue to happen. Not only are these institutions draining the world's supply, but they're no longer leaving it in custody with the West. When you see, for example, the People's Bank of China buying huge amounts of gold from the LBMA, they are immediately repatriating it so that they too are not going to be or risk being denied access to their reserves. And so this is a big deal. And I think people need to understand that the exchanges on the West, I think, have an expiration. You're seeing the cumulative volume of the Shanghai Metals Exchange and the Shanghai Futures Exchange has overtaken that of the COMEX, rendering it the number 2 most frequently and actively traded market in the world. We are hearing rumblings, of course, of the BRICS building their own metals exchange, and I do believe that is exactly what is in the cards. These countries have been using our suppression, our naked shorting, which we're going to talk about in a moment, which is as dumb as a mud wall, against us, and standing for delivery and repatriating the metal. And this is something that I don't think will change. I think they'll continue to do it. They'll continue. And the reason they didn't yank it all is that they want to continue to play the game. And that game, in my mind, is continuing to allow the West to be stupid enough to suppress the price of gold and silver.
Yep.
And they will stand for delivery. This is an option that never happened before. And as I've said on your show a million times, the countries that have done this were never coordinated, motivated, or sophisticated enough to do it, or wealthy enough. Now they are on every level. And it ultimately will bleed the system dry. And they have to do it in a very methodical manner in order not only to get the most that they can squeeze out of the system, but also for the system not to just immediately break. The COMEX would break immediately and would go force majeure and would be cash settled. Instead, they have been using something called exchange for physical, which is where you buy a contract in the West and have it delivered in places like London, in places like even Hong Kong, where there is a contract, a COMEX contract delivers to Brinks Hong Kong, where then it is picked up by a Brinks truck and delivered to the Shanghai Metals Exchange. And it's ironic that most of the gold that is delivered off the COMEX is part of their mini contract kilo bar form, which is what is traded in China. In fact, when the 400-ounce good delivery bars are bought off of the LBMA, they are immediately refined into and melted down and refined into kilo bars just to erase all trace of them whatsoever. And we talk about the exchange for physical. Now, the premium on exchange for physical has shot through the roof, and it happened a day or two ago. And everyone only thinks of exchange for physical going from west to east, but oftentimes when you have these naked short positions on COMEX and there is a delivery, there will be exchange for physical coming back to the west, coming from, let's just say, London, and to be able to make good on deliveries.
In a recent interview, Andy expressed growing concern over the surging premiums on gold and silver, emphasizing that these changes point to tightening supplies in the precious metals market. He highlights that these premiums shot up significantly just a day and a half ago, sparking fears of a potential supply shortage. Andy attributes this sharp rise to rumors that the Trump administration may soon impose tariffs on precious metals entering the U.S. As a result, traders have been scrambling to cover their short positions, fearing that any sudden policy changes could lead to a massive price spike. Andy explains that this market reaction clearly indicates how sensitive the precious metals sector is to shifts in policy and geopolitical risks. The potential for tariffs has traders and banks worried about their positions, with some even predicting that prices could soar if tariffs are imposed. Andy further predicts that a rush to secure physical metal, especially from London, where a significant portion of the global supply is held, could drive gold prices above $3,000 an ounce, with silver prices potentially following suit. According to Andy, this scenario could lead to a short squeeze, particularly in silver, where a massive number of short positions are currently at risk.
Right off the chart a day and a half ago, which is a big deal because it signals a tightness, if you will, in these bars. Now, what it really means is something that I think it's very interesting going forward with the Trump administration. And what's going on with the premiums and the futures price in gold today was up by over $60 an ounce, or 2% above the New York or the London spot. Silver was up $1 over London spot, a 3% difference. This is on the futures. And the reason that this is happening is that there has been rumor that Trump is going to put tariffs on precious metals that are coming into the country. And you have all of these naked shorts that are freaking out. They don't have the metal standing behind the naked shorts. So they have to get it now, close out their shorts and cover now and bring the metal home from London before the inauguration, because this is a preemptive risk hedging, I guess you could say, with these banks that are, I think, facing existential threat on something like a massive short squeeze. Well, this is how it happens. If he really does puts tariffs on gold and silver, you will see a massive drive to cover short positions that are back naked, and the metal has to come from somewhere. Often it does come from London. They would end up putting a 10%, a 15%, who knows how high that tariff is. But this is why you're seeing short covering that pushed the price up over the last few days. And this is also why you're seeing a big spread between London spot and the futures by as much as 3%. These traders are basically saying, if we don't do this now and close out our position, if he puts the tariffs on, we're dead. The price can go to the moon. Well over $3,000 an ounce in gold, and much, much, much higher in silver. So much so, and I don't like to make predictions, but I would make a prediction that we see a really strong rally into the end of the year as a result of this. And this is just the very beginning. It will be an interesting thing to watch. We'll see what happens over the next few days. This is similar to what we saw during COVID. It was the other way around. There were big premiums on on spot over future. The other way around here, not there, because there was worry about the ability to get metal here because of the supply chain disruptions. And so you would see the price $70, $80 higher than the futures price. Well, it's the other way around now, because they're basically saying in the future, you put these tariffs on, prices are going to go way higher. And you look on the futures market right now and look into the March contract, and the prices are way higher than spot is right now. It's very bullish for both gold and silver, and underscores how stupid these banks are. And it also underscores the sensitivity of the precious metals market to things like policy developments or geopolitical risks, where just like that, things change. And this is all happening kind of under the radar as most people are fixated on what we've seen with cryptocurrencies. They're not noticing this. And here we are right back up above 2,700 as we speak right now. The gold is almost 2,730, pretty darn close to where it was before all of this started. Silver is just over $32 an ounce. So we're climbing right back to where we were. The banks were able to cover a bunch of their shorts. And here we go, back to the upside again. Only now you have something that could potentially usher in, honestly, a real squeeze. A squeeze because these short positions are massive. 700 million plus ounces of silver on COMEX, 4 to 6 billion ounces short on the LBMA. I mean, this is rocket fuel type of potential if this continues to move the way that it is. And this is the part that I think people neglect to understand, that we're being beat at our own game. We're being outfoxed, and they understand that. Sure, people initially would think, well, they have enough money, just why don't they empty the exchanges? Because the minute you do something like that, you've cut off your nose to spite your face. Instead, I remember the first time you and I had this discussion, and it was the others that were standing for delivery, the sovereign wealth funds. That was in 2020. So since 2020, they have been very methodically draining the world's exchanges. And who knows how much they've built up. I mean, India's bought between 8 and 900 million ounces over the last 4 years of silver from what they've declared. Well, that's more than the LBMA has in total in its inventory, of which 500 million of the 800 million ounces belong to the ETFs. They have 300 million ounces. That's it. And India has imported at least 3 times that over the last 4 years, slowly, quietly. And China's doing it. And now Russia is adding it to its actual state strategic stockpile. You can see things are accelerating a little bit, but they've done a masterful job at beating us at our own game. And I feel like I bang my head against the wall when I keep saying this, but this is exactly the kind of beginnings that you would see before a real problem arises. And look, you know, how many times have people said this is the time the problem's going to happen? It probably won't. But if it does, this is how it starts. It starts when there's a failure to deliver, and then it's a daisy chain. And when you see the premiums on exchange for physical go through the roof, and then you see, you know, massive short covering because the trade, and it's interesting, the premiums went up a day before this was announced. The traders kind of got wind of it a day before it became evident why. And it is because he is threatening to put tariffs on gold and silver coming into the country. Not sure what his reasoning is, but it's enough to make the traders start to freak out.
Analysts predict that the price of gold will continue its upward trajectory, potentially setting new record highs. By 2025, experts forecast that gold could reach $3,000 per ounce, possibly climbing to $3,700 per ounce within the next 2 years. This potential surge is largely attributed to strong demand from central banks and shifts in the Federal Reserve's monetary policy. Investors anticipate that central banks will remain active purchasers of gold through 2024. However, the overall volume of purchases this year may fall slightly below the levels seen in the past 2 years, largely due to the significant increase in gold prices since March. Central banks globally hold 12.1% of the world's gold reserves, marking the highest percentage in 3 decades. This increased gold accumulation underscores the belief that gold is vital for diversifying and stabilizing reserves, especially amid ongoing economic uncertainties. With these factors in play, the demand for gold will remain strong, supporting the precious metal's price surge and potentially driving it to unprecedented levels shortly. Please share your thoughts on Andy's analysis in the comments below. Also, ensure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications for more videos like this. Thanks for watching.